Welcome to the Growth for Good podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Geoff Todd. He's the founder of Farsight Digital Solutions. Geoff works with businesses to untangle messy systems, automate time-consuming processes, and to use artificial intelligence in ways that genuinely help people rather than confuse or overwhelm them. So we talk about why so many organizations are stuck with systems that don't work, the ethical challenges in the tech industry, and how processes can reduce stress, save time, and create healthier businesses. If you've ever felt that your systems are running you rather than the other way around, this is the conversation for you. Well, welcome to another Growth for Good podcast. I'm delighted to have Geoff Todd from Farsight Digital Solutions with me for this episode. Geoff, hello.
Hello.
Farsight Digital Solutions, before we talk about you and how you got there, tell me about the company. What is it you do?
So by digital solutions, we mean systems, automation and AI. So helping businesses, usually owner-operated, owner-managed businesses of all sorts of sizes with their systems and the automation within those systems of all the stuff that businesses do with data, basically.
So this is if, you've got things that are going on, bits of paper that pass around, spreadsheets that you're looking at. All of those bits and pieces can become quite cumbersome, can slow things down. That's where you go and you look at the process.
Yeah, so we look at the process. We often map those processes first, and then we look at which systems, which pieces of software are holding bits of the process. Where does the data live, and then where are the inefficiencies? So where, as you say, whereas something be done on a spreadsheet instead of in the core system, whereas they're copying and pasting between systems, or where is actually there's something that is just in someone's head that isn't actually in any kind of system.
But I'm going to come back to you on that. Before we get started on that, though, tell us about Geoff. What were the formative things for you that set you on this path that brought you to where you are just now? Tell me about your history.
So the really short version is I think I've maybe always had an entrepreneurial streak. My mum tells a story of how I would start businesses as a child. And I remember starting a bank and a newspaper and things like that. I was one of 7 siblings, so I had a lot of younger siblings around to be my customers. So I would play at businesses, but I was really interested in
power businesses as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I'm not sure I quite had the ethics of it right at the time. I remember my siblings being slightly ripped off by my bank in particular. But yeah, I've just enjoyed that world, and it wasn't in my family background or anything, but I found it fascinating. But I didn't study it. I did a degree in philosophy because I was just interested in learning about how the world works, and thinking about thinking was kind of the ideal for me, and I love reading and all of that. But then I went to work for an IT company and sort of got into IT, and that was my first real experience of working with businesses and seeing what it was really like underneath. And again, I realized it's the actual operation of businesses that I find fascinating.
And that being educated in philosophy to that degree, to that degree, do you find that's helped, shape the way you take things forward, the way you think about business and the way people run their operations? Yeah,
because it's a training in how to think analytically, how to spot arguments that aren't valid, even if they look valid, that kind of thing. So it's been really good and also just in terms of processing lots of information. That's what I do in the consulting side of the business. So and also just a love of learning. It gave me a foundation of thinking about the world in a really positive, open way that there's so much to learn, and we can never get to the bottom of it all. But learning it is the journey and is the fun.
So in between the pretend banks and the pretend newspapers and all those things, and the degree, and then to Farsight Digital, you must have been doing other things as well. So what was your career like?
Yeah, so I worked for this IT company for a little bit, living in Aberdeenshire at the time, and then I worked remotely, moved back to Stirling, and then when I was there, I started a digital marketing company, and we built websites and did sort of Facebook ads, Google ads, and things like that. But I realized I didn't particularly enjoy marketing. It wasn't the angle of things I was interested in. It was more business as a whole, and doing marketing wasn't quite my thing. So I ended up stopping that just as it was actually starting to grow. I sort of stopped it. I thought, this isn't right for me. Briefly worked for a few months with a startup who wanted a chief technical officer, and I did a little stint with them. I met them via Codebase in Stirling. And then I decided, actually, business, I need to go back to business system stuff. And at that point, there was no AI, and automation wasn't really much of a thing, so I was helping businesses to choose the right software for them, like the right CRM tool or the right accounting software or whatever. But that very quickly evolved into the automation between those systems, and I've then just sort of journeyed with this technology as it's grown. And then, of course, the most recent wave of that is AI, and people need help implementing that as well.
Taking you to where you are just now.
Yeah.
So you're running that digital marketing thing, you decide that you need to get back into a change to get back into systems and processes. That's where your heart is. What was the revelation then around that time? What was the thing that made you go, I've got to do this?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it was that I no longer had a job. So
that's quite a big revelation for people. Yeah.
The work with the startup finished, and actually, I'd realised I love this. I thought I'm so excited about having no income and a blank slate. I can think about this from the start and start something new. Loved it, and so because I had a network of clients from before, I quickly found some people who needed some help with system stuff, and it grew from there. We rebranded it to Farsight in 2023. But I think there was a moment there again where I just thought, all right, okay, either we do this or we don't. And I want it to not be just me as a consultant, but if this is going to be do some good in the world, then it needs to just take some shape and get bigger and put down some roots. So.
Did you have a feeling of jeopardy? Was this a big risk for you at the time, or did you feel pretty comfortable?
No, it was quite risky. I had a few other things going on as well that I could have gone down different routes, but took some advice and everyone agreed this was the one that had the legs. But at that point, we didn't particularly have many clients. It wasn't really, I had to hire people and I didn't really have the funds to pay them and that kind of thing. So there was definitely a lot of risks along the way. Still are, because growing is tough.
And how did you feel about that at the time?
I felt, again, probably more excited than anything else because I quite enjoy the sort of risk-benefit, sort of risk-reward, sort of cost-benefit, sort of weighing up. That I like that. I can see the way through those sorts of decisions, I think. So, but I've had a lot of sleepless nights and been pretty stressed at times as well, so it's not plain sailing.
Do you think that enthusiasm, that feeling of excitement actually was a tool, a piece of armour that you put on, or was it just something that was natural to you?
That's a really good question. I think I'm naturally more excited than nervous. Someone once told me that the physical feelings of excitement and nervousness are the same physical feelings. So you get that same flutter in your stomach and that kind of thing. So you can choose to say, I'm excited or I'm nervous. And sometimes just telling yourself you're excited turns off the nerves and makes you excited. So I think there's a fine line, but I've tended to be more on the excited side naturally. Yeah.
So Geoff, that's quite a big decision to make. You chose to go and become a founder, to start up a new business as opposed to seek a career doing this with somebody else. What was it that drove you to become a founder as opposed to just thinking, I want a job doing this, where there's maybe more security, there's pensions, all those kinds of things rolled up into it?
Yeah. So I think the core thing is probably that I like being in charge of something if I can see how it should be done. I actually don't like being in charge of something if someone else is better at it. I'd much rather be a follower and let them do their thing, and I will gladly follow. But I was in this space realizing there's a lot of one of the details is that in the space that I'm in, there's a lot of it's not immoral, but it's just on the line. People sell the tool they have and convince people that it's the right thing for them. And I met a lot of companies where actually they've been sold some software that was actually not the best fit. And it was that kind of thing motivated me, that like this is an industry where there's an expectation that you can't trust anybody, and there's an expectation that you have to put up with badly fitting systems. And I looked around and thought that's actually not true, but the industry is perpetuating this just because of the way it's set up. So it made me realize that if I want to make a difference in that space, which I hate seeing bad systems and I love seeing good systems, and I thought we could make a little dent in this, but I can't do that myself. And I see things the way other companies perhaps don't see it. So I felt a little bit of a mission.
Is that ethical underpinning something that's really important to you personally?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So how has becoming a founder changed the way you perceive yourself and the way you do things?
I mean, I struggle with the identity element of it a little bit, to be honest. Like, the raw answer to that would be it's not a natural fit. I mean, I don't have a big ego. I'm not particularly excited by people, pointing out or even being on a thing like this, and I'd be very comfortable never being in the public eye, although I'm comfortable talking and giving talks and things, but I'm not naturally extrovert or kind of wanting to do all that stuff. So there's a tension there because you have to do that as a founder. You're the face of the company. They're the leader. And I'm also not naturally a people manager either. I don't think so. I brought people in who are better than me at that sort of thing.
So that interest in that comment, because it's always something I've subscribed to, is that actually if you employ people that are better than you, the whole thing rises. And you're able to give a much better ethical return to the people who are paying for your services if you've got that in place. How easy has that been for you then to find that talent that you've needed to raise the bar for?
Yeah,
for you as well as your company.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not easy. I think it's been easier to find people in more traditional roles like management and to fulfill functions like finance and things like that. That's well understood. But the industry we're in is changing so fast that there's not an obvious job title even. There's not an obvious way to benchmark salaries because it's a space where it's new. So the type of work we do is quite specifically set up, and it's not a straightforward thing. Like we're not looking to hire a developer, for example. That we're looking to do. We do no code, we do AI, we do automation, and those particular tool sets don't actually come with a job title. So we made up one. We call our technical people platform architects, which is more or less made up, partly because it's a unique thing. That makes recruitment really hard, though. So we do find a regular challenge of people applying who don't understand the job or who are overqualified, underqualified. I suppose you could take platform architect a number of different ways, couldn't you? You could, absolutely. That's kind of the idea, yeah.
Looking at what you do, your company forms itself around, as far as I can see, looking to help businesses get to clarity, simplicity and long-term thinking.
Yeah.
How does that reflect the values that you've brought to the company?
Yeah, so it's in the name. The Farsight part has that long-term thinking and also clarity. Again, it relates to the idea that in the tech world, there's not a lot of that. It's often about short-term sales, short-term results. But actually, the technology world really benefits from thinking long-term. There's values that we have as a company, which are integrity, imagination, rigor, and authenticity. And those. So
before you go any further, just break those down for us. So those are 4 things. So tell me about those.
Yeah. So some of those reflect my personal values, and some of those I think we're deliberate, sort of looking at the industry and thinking where are we not seeing as much of this as we could, and how do we deliberately position ourselves as we're going to be different here. So. Integrity, I think most businesses should have that as a core value. If you're not going to have integrity, then you shouldn't really be in business.
You would hope so.
You'd hope so.
I'm not sure
it's not always true.
Not sure it's across the entire playing field, but you'd hope so.
No, unfortunately not. But yeah, so we value that really highly, and we'll.
So what does that mean to you, though?
So it means that we will say if we've messed up. We won't hide things. It means that we will we'll be honest even when it's bad for us. And if something's not the right fit for us, we'll say, look, you'd be better somewhere else. We'll turn things down, which we do, and. So we're not primarily looking out for ourselves. We're looking out for what's best overall here for the client.
You're not going to try and shoehorn something in and make it fit.
No, exactly. Yeah, and we'll own our mistakes. That kind of thing.
So no excuses.
No, exactly. There might be reasons, but we won't make excuses. And then there's imagination, which is a key one because you need imagination to come up with solutions. So there's all sorts of possibilities. How do you find the right solution? There's not a formula. You need to use imagination. You need to picture something that doesn't yet exist. And that comes in our consulting side of things, and also very much when we build things practically. There's lots of ways you could build an automation. So how do you imagine the very best way and then look to see if you could practically put that in? So that's imagination. There's other aspects of that too. And then authenticity is partly related to integrity, but we want to see people as people rather than just as clients. And we want to also, it applies in how we design systems as well, that the system needs to be authentic, for example.
That's an interesting question to pick up with you. So if you're being authentic and you're talking about people and business, at what point do you separate being authentic for the people as opposed to the business objectives?
Yeah, it's true, and these are the tensions, aren't they? And that requires imagination as well. Then to back
good
to
answer.
That one, to work around. One practical example of that is, for example, with the world of AI, we're firmly on the side of it should be authentic. So we wouldn't use AI to pretend to be a human. Like there's no problem with having a chatbot as long as it's obvious it's AI. But one that's pretending to be, or a voice agent that's pretending to be a human and doesn't declare itself, I think that's crossed a line. And so things like that is no longer, it's clearly inauthentic, and we think there's a trend in the world to be more and more artificial, and I don't think that's good for humanity. So the humane approach is to keep authenticity as a key thing. And what one did I miss out?
They're your values. I can't help you.
I can't remember what order I did them in. Imagination, authenticity, integrity, and and my mind's gone blank.
It'll come back to you, I'm sure, in a minute. So basically, you've got to work with a team of people who've got to subscribe to these values. How challenging is that to make sure that everybody's on the same wavelength with all of those things all of the time? Because there must be competing pressures. I would imagine at the moment you're going through a very healthy time for growth, but there'll be other times when it's a bit more kind of squeaky for you. So
definitely.
So how do you balance that with the team? How do you make sure that everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were?
Yeah. Well, the last one that I forgot was rigor. So that's a good answer in the question. So, which is the value that comes down to the people who are doing the work. A lot of the time is rigor when you're developing something. Are we checking things? Are we double testing things? Are we making sure we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's? And that's one of the things that we can check for when we're bringing people on, is that we give people test projects. How good are they at the test project? Do they blow us away by how good it was, or was it just okay? They're trying to get better at drawing those lines of people who are coming onto the team who are already a good fit because they've demonstrated that in how we recruit. But then within the team, we remind people of the values regularly. We have team days where we get together in person and remotely, because we're a fully remote team. And at those team days, we'll always rehearse those values and ask people for examples of where have we seen these in action. And people are great at calling out others to say, that person demonstrated rigor really clearly there in how they found this little detail that could easily have been missed, and that sort of thing. So we have to talk about them, live and breathe them. They're also publicly on our website, which I remind the team as well, that anyone can hold us accountable.
And what you talked about being fully remote just now, what are the advantages and disadvantages for you and your team of being fully remote?
It's a definite trade-off. So the advantage is we can hire from anywhere. We have people all over the world working on the team, primarily the UK, but we have people in other countries as well. That's great, because some of these people are just incredible. They're fantastic team members, and we wouldn't have necessarily found them in the UK. The downside, of course, is that then we don't get that benefit of just being in the same room and bumping into each other and chatting. One way we've mitigated that is we use a great tool called Kumo Space, which is a virtual office, and people, we are in that regularly. People have their own little offices. We have breakout spaces. We have a beach room. We have this kind of thing, and you wander around it like you're in a Zoom call. It's your actual video feed that is you. So you are yourself. Your face is wandering about the room. So we can pop into each other's offices in a way that you can do in real life, but you don't do if you're in a remote team where you have to set up a Teams call or a Zoom call or something in order to chat to people. And we make good use of Google Chat in our case, and that kind of communication. But it is a real trade-off, and it's a challenge. Almost very regularly, I think, I wish we all just worked in an office, because they're such great people. I'd love to be around them more. But
so it begs a question then about your marketplace. So you're here in the Highlands chatting to me. This is where I know you from, and you're dealing with Highland businesses all the time. But where else are you working?
Yeah, so all over the UK, and we have some clients overseas as well, some in America, one in Australia, but for the most part the UK. We get our business mostly by word of mouth, so it tends to be that people who are in the UK refer businesses in the UK, and it is easier to work when we can in fact go and visit them, especially at the start of the process. I like to go and visit in person. It's harder to do that overseas, but that's not impossible.
So for a business with very hard ethical boundaries, you've no geographical boundaries.
That's right, great way of putting it, yeah.
No boundaries in terms of geography. As we've just said, boundaries around the ethics, they're very tight. You've obviously, your boundaries, your ethical boundaries and everything else are challenged when you have pressures. What's the most challenging period you've experienced so far as a business?
I think it was probably when we first turned into Farsight. So that was in 2023, and we rebranded, and there'd been a small team starting to gather, but we didn't really have a brand. It was just me as a consultant with some team, and then we grew significantly from there. And that was challenging in the early period, just because cash flow is so difficult. It's just difficult to lay the ground, tell people how you want to be paid and make them pay up front or whatever it is that needs to be done for cash flow if you haven't got much of a track record to go for. So that was really difficult. It's still a challenge. Cash flow, I think every business owner I speak to knows that challenge. And it's not pleasant when you think, where is the money going to come from? And growth makes that even harder because you end up with costs going up often faster than the income is going up. And
you're constantly taking risks in business, because you're going, I have to invest. I'm not guaranteed to get that. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Exactly, yeah. It's that risk taking, which is for the good of the business, but as the owner, I'm the one that feels that, and it's quite right that the team don't feel that. They shouldn't really know most of the time because they shouldn't have that worry. It's me that has to carry that, so that's probably the most challenging.
And that pressure of being a founder, being a leader of a business, one of the things that people don't really often talk about is the fact that you're worried about sometimes paying other people's wages, their livelihoods, knowing that it's impacting on their families if you don't deliver.
Absolutely.
So again, do you turn to excitement to keep that going? Or what, if you face a challenge, how is it you deal with that personally?
There's a few ways. I mean, the honest answer is one thing that helps me is I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus, as the way I tend to put it, and as I pray, that helps a lot. Like I think people have their own equivalents of that. If they have no faith in particular, they maybe meditate and that kind of thing. But it really helps, to have an external source of comfort, if you like. But that really helps. And I have a really vibrant community of people I know who are also business owners, a lot of whom are also Christians. There's a lot of overlapping circles there where, there's high levels of trust and I'm able to share some things that are confidential, but know that they're also in it, feeling it, and in many cases praying for me if they're also, have that shared faith. So that's a big part of it for me and has carried me through a lot of, but then also other things with family. So my wife Charlotte and my two kids, I'm really, couldn't do without them.
How old are your kids?
They are 11 and 13.
Great ages,
Yeah. And so that's an absolute joy. So often just switching off from the stresses and going to do something fun with family, absolute game changer.
And what do you like to do, Geoff? What's the thing that you like to do with the family for fun?
Well, we like the thing that most families like. I think food. We like watching films. So we'll cook and or just like go out for a walk. Or in the summer there's a lot of cycling and wild swimming and making the most of living in the Highlands.
And so the environment that you live in here is very important to you as well in terms of coping with those pressures and stresses.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I do a lot of trips down to the Central Belt to go do work with and beyond. And I often say I love getting on the A9 and coming north. The A9 itself has its challenges, but the turning north again and coming home to Inverness is it feels great. And I feel like there's a sort of little bit of a cushion there where I can leave some of the rush behind and have a bit more of a sort of calmer space up here.
I think that's a common thing with most people in the Highlands. They love that return home. I know I've had it many times over my career. So you've got that same thing about how you deal with that here. You've got that homecoming thing, that feeling of inspiration from the surroundings. You've also got your faith. All of those things keep you in check, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does success look like to you now? In fact, both for Farsight Digital. Let's start with that. What does success look like for Farsight Digital to you now?
We measure success. One of our main metrics I talk to the team about is happy clients. I heard someone else describe it as, we have one metric, which is smiles. And it's not.
What a lovely expression.
Exactly. Well, I think he said one thing that we measure is smiles, and the metrics are width and duration.
Width and duration of smile.
Ultimately, the way I see it is that success is, if we have happy clients, it's because they're getting success through what we've done for them. They're seeing the impact. It's making their teams happier. It's making an impact in their worlds. That then means they're happy. They want to keep working with us, and they recommend us to other people. That's successful for us. Obviously, we have to be profitable, so there's a caveat to that. We can have, if we're happy clients but loss making, the way I see it is, it's still happy clients because they won't be happy for long if we go bust. So there's a balance there, but that's the main thing, and I think that then dictates other things too. So if we can have more happy clients by being bigger, then success looks like us getting bigger. If actually there's a size where getting bigger would mean that we can't do as good a service, then we would stop getting bigger. So it's trying to, and I think that also means, for me as an owner, the stress levels are lower because if everyone's happy,
I was just going to ask
nothing to worry about.
I was just going to follow that up by asking you what the success looks like for you personally.
Yeah.
So
I mean, for me, it means not being stressed. So, which is also then a success for my family. That's what my wife and kids would like as well, is that I'm not stressed and overworking and things.
So you wouldn't describe it as an easy life, but basically you're describing it as an easy life.
Yeah, and it's not quite there yet, I don't think, but that's the goal. And I think you can tangibly measure that of, have you had, I spoke to one business owner a long time ago and said, what would be your top advice for when I was just starting my first business? And he said, what I wish I'd done is had a calendar and drawn a little happy face or a sad face on it every day, so that I could go back and look and see when was I happy in business, when was I not happy. And he reckons there would have been a lot of times that would have been sad faces. And I thought that's always stuck with me, that actually it's a good point that if you look at it and go, well, is this making me happier or sadder right now? I don't have to do this, so why am I choosing to do it? And so a lot of the stuff we do is geared towards that, of like, well, let's keep everybody happy, not because we're scared of them being sad or angry or upset or whatever, but because if everyone's happy, everything, it just sort of lifts all the boats at the same time.
Well, that leads me into a question about what your experience has brought to you. If you were going back in time a wee bit, with the happy and sad in mind, what would you do differently, if anything? Is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, definitely. Loads.
Give me an example then. What would be a...
So I think we could have recruited different people, and we could have recruited faster. And we often spent periods of time where we had sales coming in, we just didn't have the people to deliver it, didn't have enough people, so we kind of started to burn out the really good people, and kept hold of people who couldn't do the work well enough, or it wasn't the right fit, kept hold of them too long. So I think I would have been a much snappier with building the team. So
the focus would be on your team and how to do that.
Yeah, because that unlocks everything else really as well. Yeah. Sales have been easy, an easy side of things. I wouldn't change anything there. Doing all that by word of mouth and things worked really well. But building the team and building the technical capability would have done differently.
Is that the advice you would give to other founders, or is there another piece of advice that you think is probably more important to give to them?
It's two things really. One would be get a really good team and get it as fast as possible, and don't skimp on that. And then the other thing that's sort of related is charge more, because actually we just undervalued what we were doing and charged far too little for it, which is in some ways fair enough because it was often quite new, and so we weren't sure how valuable it would be. But then we looked back on a lot of things.
You were testing the market for it.
Yeah.
But it's quite a common thing in business that people don't value their worth.
Yes.
And probably, as the word I was going to use, is don't understand their worth. And that means that sometimes you're holding back the development so that you can actually deliver a better service because you're not charging enough.
Exactly.
For it. So is that something you've found? Is that something you've experienced?
Yeah, and we've ended up massively over delivering on some projects. We've even been in a situation where we've lost a lot of money on a project, but because of our ethics, we've stuck at it, we've delivered, we've lost the money, made sure the client's happy, and chalked it up to experience. We've kind of, it's like equivalent of paying for a really good business course where we learned about this whole situation. We'll never repeat the mistake again, but now we've learned. And we didn't let anybody down in the process as well. So but those bumpy journeys have not been fun. And so I would always advise, try and make sure there's enough money coming in, and you're charging up front for these sorts of things. If in a service business, you really have to, and protect the cash flow in as many ways as you can, and make sure you have the people in place to really do the work well.
So we started off talking about excitement. You're very excited about what you're doing, and that path towards getting to that place where you have no stress and so forth in the future, which I wish you're well on.
Thank you.
But since we're talking about excitement, let's talk about the excitement of what happens next for Farsight. What are the future plans?
Yeah. Well, scaling up really. So we do think that we can do a lot more good through doing. Now we've really got some great successes behind us, a lot of experience under our belt, some great people in the team. We want to just scale that up. We've also realised that we've got a bit of an opportunity to train people in this part of the industry. There's just nowhere near enough people who can help businesses with automation and systems and AI. There's a lot of consultants who can give advice, and there's a lot of big companies that can do some sort of really large-scale projects. But the big chunk is the middle, is the SMEs in the middle, and that's who we're passionate about helping. And they're struggling to find people to help. So we want to scale up so we can help fill that niche, which means we also need to look around for people who are needing trained. So in particular, people who have been, for example, software developers. That world is shrinking as AI comes in and can code better than a lot of humans can. So especially more junior level software developers, coders, are struggling to find work. But they're the right people to work for us because they understand the underlying technology and the underlying software world, but they can move into the sort of the no-code, low-code AI side of things and automation. So right now we're recruiting for that kind of thing, like bringing people in who have skills but are struggling in the reshaping marketplace, and we can help them retrain and have hopefully a blossoming career in the new world as it is now.
So I think we're now at the stage where we've talked about the company, we kind of understand a wee bit about you and the way you approach things. Right back at the beginning, I asked you to explain what it is you actually do for companies. Can we just revisit that before we finish? Because I kind of interrupted you because I wanted to get a wee bit further down the line before we said. So, just to clarify, you've got a company that's got processes, way they do things, bits of paper, spreadsheets, all of those kinds of things, cutting and pasting, we talked about that. Just explain what you would do in terms of your mapping and everything when you go in.
So I always say it all starts with data. That's the fundamental thing. Every business always involves data, even if it's the business that mostly does things out in the real world with machinery and trucks and whatever else. It still always involves information having to be stored and managed. Systems in a business is just whatever stores and manages that information. So it's going to be emails, bits of paper, post-it notes, whiteboards, lots of spreadsheets probably, then probably a CRM system, maybe a project management system,
1,000 Word files.
Folders. Yeah. So all of that, and those systems have evolved over time. Microsoft kind of set the tone that we have to still think in documents and folders and that kind of thing. That's all starting to shift a little bit, I think. But over time, particularly a long-standing business, they maybe still have the filing cabinets with the old paper files in them, and they've got the modern technology in place. But that's changing again and again. So what we do is we start off with process mapping, usually where we go in into a business and end-to-end explore what happens, how does information flow through the business, what systems does it touch, how is it being processed, and then we look at what systems are in place to do that. So what technology and what could be better, what could be automated between systems, what systems could be replaced with something more.
Now, you're being quite modest here because some of the testimonials on your website that I've seen, people are talking about some quite exceptional results. So give me a couple of examples there.
Yeah, so, there's a few, there's plenty to choose from, but ultimately we've got stories of processes that literally took hours with multiple spreadsheets and very intelligent people having to work hard to generate the output that's required. We've taken their intelligence, built it into an automation, and now that process is a click of a button, and 5 minutes later the output is there instead of days or hours. So that kind of thing is very possible. We've used AI to analyze, for example, supplier invoices that could be anything from a smudgy thing that a truck driver has got oil on to a handwritten thing to a 20-page, thousands or hundreds of lines, which had to be processed into accounting software. That takes several people days to do. It's mind-numbing work. With AI, we can have that run through, still have an approval process where a human looks at it and ticks it off. No paper involved, and it runs with 95 to 100% accuracy.
So you're talking about, in essence, and this is actually backed up by some of the people who are willing to say this is what you've done.
Yeah.
You're talking about weeks worth of work, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds sometimes in savings.
Absolutely.
In what you're doing, which is, I think for most people in business, they're always looking for what are your costs and what can you bring in. We talked about the sales opportunities and things like that earlier, but this is a very substantial impact on people's businesses, isn't it?
Yeah, and it all depends on the type of business. So businesses that are very tech savvy probably have a lot less to gain because they've already got some pretty slick things. Businesses that are older, a lot of our clients are family-owned businesses, they're multi-generational family businesses. They tend to be the ones that have been slower to adapt. But any older business is often sitting with a lot of inefficiency, and like you say, it can be amazing amounts of money that are there to be saved without having to hire anyone, without having to take on masses of costs. You can just see a straight away increased profit for the year, but also I think there's other benefits. There's the human wealth that comes with the financial side, because if bad systems stress people out. That whole computer says no thing. That it's just annoying for people. But if you can take that away and instead the system says yes, and they say, I need this thing, great, we'll just set that up. Click the button, you get the thing you want. That makes people's work less stressful. They're more able. They've got more to give then, and we like to think that trickles down into people then having happier family lives, happier communities. A better world basically, because you've taken away that stress.
Well, on that exciting note. We'll stop there. Geoff Todd from Farsight Solutions, Thank you very much indeed for coming in to speak to us on the Growth for Good podcast.
Thanks, Drew.
That was Geoff Todd from Farsight Digital Solutions. What really stood out for me was Geoff's focus on ethics, clarity, and long-term thinking. This wasn't a conversation about technology for technology's sake. It was about making work easier, reducing friction, and building systems that actually support people and businesses to thrive. So if you found this episode useful, please share the episode, subscribe to the podcast, and follow Growth for Good for more conversations with people using business, technology, and leadership to create positive impact. Thanks for watching and listening. I'll see you next time.